need my glasses. Am I the tallest one? I know I'm the oldest one who's spoken today, so I need my glasses, and I have to read because my memory has left me, I think. I don't know which is most frightening, being up here in front of hundreds of people or 30 high school students. But this is pretty scary. I kept thinking one or more of my good friends would try to talk me out of doing this, but no one did. And now I'm thinking I really have no true friends. I think I can speak for Dennis and say he's honored and humbled by your presence here today. And I know he's here in spirit, right here on my shoulder, saying, "Are you sure you ordered enough food?" You know, for Dennis, it was always about food. And when we would have functions like this to attend, weddings and funerals, he would always say, "Let's just go to the reception." And I would have to tell him that was inappropriate. Those of you who knew Dennis well know that he had a great sense of humor, a very quick wit. So I think he would be okay with the fact that I have made this a toast, which we'll do later, but more of a roast, which I'm going to do now. So I'd like to take a few minutes to share with you some things that only a wife knows about her husband. We've shared a home, a bed, a bathroom. No woman should have to do that. We've shared time with our families, our friends. We've shared our fears, our joys, our most intimate thoughts. I've been with Dennis for 31 years. That includes the 5 years of dating. He was very reluctant to tie the knot. First of all, he thought I was a bit too old for him. After all, at that time, I was 35 years old. He could always get those younger women. He was very charming. And on our first date, he said, "You need to know I have boundaries. I usually don't date women who live west of Sheridan." And I live nearly to Wadsworth. So he made it very clear he was making an exception for me. So I felt very special from the start. I fell in love with Dennis because he made me laugh every day, and because he was the most wonderful man I had ever met. And I knew good men were in short supply. He fell in love with me because I had a 6-year-old he could play judo. So we completed over 26 years of marriage. We were both proud of that. Not bad for a second marriage, we would say. At least it was a second marriage for me. He was always a little vague about how many times he'd been married. But he always assured me I was the best wife he'd ever had. We blended our families, 3 daughters and 1 son, Tanya, Megan, Aaron, and Zach. In addition to our 4 children, we hosted 5 years of exchange students through Rotary and judo. Rudy, our favorite exchange student from Slovakia, is here today. He's now working as an attorney in Prague. He calls Dennis his American dad. We've had a charmed life, Dennis would often say as he grabbed my hand. Most people feel marriage is hard work. Dennis made ours so very easy. I wouldn't say we were soulmates. We were opposites in so many ways. Dennis was a night person. I loved the mornings. He rooted for CU, me CSU. Dennis was a conservative. I'm not. I loved to be up working around the house and the yard. He preferred bed rest. He loved steak and eggs for breakfast. I like green smoothies. He loved the beach, the sand and the heat. I loved the mountains, the snow and the cold. I loved to read. He liked TV. He loved old TV shows. He watched 2 hours of Gunsmoke every day. If he couldn't watch it, I had to tape it. And he seldom missed Andy of Mayberry. We did, however, share enough common interests that we loved spending time together. We loved to bike. We loved to play tennis. We loved Sunday trips. Many visits to Leadville and San Francisco and New Orleans. Our main common interest, however, was eating. Living with Dennis was like living in the Garden of Eden. He was always searching for that next best restaurant. North, south, east, or west. He didn't care how far we had to drive. Sometimes we ended up in another state. But it was usually a little local dive, the other side of town. When I offered to cook at home, he would usually say I'd really rather go out. He teased me a lot about my cooking. One night when I was in the middle of making dinner, I felt a little sick, so I decided to rest on the floor for a minute. He came home from work, nearly tripped over me, said you really shouldn't sample your own cooking. These are true stories. Dennis was raised on a farm in Iowa. He wanted to be a farmer, but his parents told him it was too hard of a life for him. For him, that is. According to his sister, he was kind of lazy around the farm. Of course, he grew up eating fresh vegetables, and in Colorado always attempted to grow a garden, especially tomatoes, but without much success. So my parents always brought him dozens of tomatoes when they came to visit from Illinois. One time after they left, I found a huge tomato in his underwear drawer. I said, Dennis, what is this tomato doing in your underwear drawer? He said, well, I had to hide it someplace. My 7-year-old nephew, Brody, told me a few days ago, every time I eat a tomato, I think of Denny. Dennis loved small farm towns. His favorite trips were visiting family and friends in Humiston, Iowa, and my hometown of Newton, Illinois. He asked that some of his remains be placed at the gravesite of his parents and the gravesite of my father, and we're planning services there. Not only was Dennis generous with his time, he also enjoyed helping people financially. He helped young employees with college tuition and books. He helped families in emergencies. He gave patients breaks on their bills. A patient of 34 years rode on Caring Bridge. During times of unemployment and no insurance, Dr. McGuire would whisper to his office gal, make sure you give him a very deep discount. Although very generous, Dennis could also be extremely frugal, always turning off lights and trying to keep our heating bill down. Our kids would always say, why is everybody else's house warm but ours? Oh, and only 2 squares of toilet tissue. And he had an interesting way of keeping our water bill down. He would use our backyard as a porta potty. Always after dark, of course. And he taught our grandsons this behavior. But he forgot to tell them not to do it in the daylight. One afternoon, Morgan, he was about 4, was standing outside near the golf course by a bush with his pants down. He was yelling, Grandma, Grandma, come here. I ran out there and he said, tell Grandpa this bush does not work. Dennis also taught Morgan to drive. Not a good idea. They recently took a road trip back to Iowa, just the two of them. Morgan had just gotten his driver's license, so it was kind of an extension of Grandpa's driver's training. Guess who got the speeding ticket? Dennis always had a lead foot, and he was always backing into things. Once he backed into this huge concrete pillar, drove forward calmly like nothing had happened. I said, Dennis, you just ran into a big post. He said, well, what do you want me to do, leave a note? Like I said, he made me laugh every single day. Dennis wasn't much of a fix-it guy. He never bothered with honey-do lists. He sometimes hired people to change light bulbs and replace batteries. He simply had better things to do with his time. That didn't include shopping. I don't think he ever shopped a day in his life. His daughters and I always bought him all of his clothes. So he had a nice wardrobe, but he just couldn't put things together. His office gals would often say, he can tell when you lay his clothes out for him. One morning he was dressing for an award banquet at which he was the guest of honor, and he had to give a speech. He came through the house with a turtleneck on with a big rip in the neck. I said, Dennis, you can't wear that. He said, all right. He went back to the closet, came through with the same shirt on. It simply turned it around backwards. Dennis loved everybody, truly. I don't think he ever said an unkind word about anyone, except maybe a judo parent or two. And I don't imagine anyone ever said an unkind word about him, except maybe a judo parent or two. He saw the good in everyone. His main focus was on his family. He'd rather spend time with his kids and grandkids than anyone else. He cherished every moment with them. In the past few years, he was blessed to have all three of his daughters working for him, and he saw them nearly every day. Our 6 grandchildren, Ryan, Brandon, Talon, Morgan, Mason, Maddie, brought him so much happiness. Dennis, Dr. Minnie, impacted hundreds of lives through judo and other aspects of his life. Dozens of young men and women have told me recently that he was like a father to them. Parents of judo kids have said, Doc made men of our boys. He made a difference in their lives by not only strengthening their bodies, but their minds and spirits. As you might know, Dennis has received many awards: Lifetime Achievement, Citizen of the Year, Community Service, and he just received the Legacy Award from the city of Northland. I would like to add one more award, the Award for Courage. He had a mental and physical toughness like no other. He faced his health issues. That vodka is great. Now I have some courage. He faced his health issues with an absence of self-pity and an absence of fear. Each time he was faced with a health issue, he would say things like, we'll get this straightened out, don't worry. I'm glad it's me and not you. It's just a minor inconvenience. It's just a little bit of cancer. And I'd say, isn't that like being a little bit pregnant? He made it through many surgeries, knees, shoulders, always defying the normal recovery time, spending far fewer days in the hospital than was recommended. He hated hospitals. It took me 4 days to get him into the hospital for this most recent illness. He agreed to go if I would allow him to take his favorite pillow. He begged the doctor not to make him stay overnight, and the second day he said, please let me go home. Just for a couple of hours, I promise I'll come back. He kept asking the nurses to open the windows. They knew he was planning his escape. I'd like to thank the nurses at St. Anthony North. Some of them might be here today. They would call on their days off to check on Dennis. Sometimes they would wake in the middle of the night and make a call to see how he was doing. They would stroke his face, call him Toots, said that his sweetness came through his eyes. One nurse who had worked in ICU for many years said she'd never cared for a patient who was so loved. They brought us warm blankets, held our hands, gave us hugs, cried with us. I even got a massage one day, and they never complained about the high volume of visitors. Even though we originally said family only, we had hundreds of visitors. Everyone thought they were family because of the way Dennis treated them. Dennis had a wonderful life. He realized all of his dreams, except watching his grandchildren fulfill their dreams. But like his daughter Megan has said, he will have the best seat in the house. He will see Ryan become a rock star in LA, Brandon a fighter pilot, Talon a Lego executive, Morgan and Mason pro baseball players, and our only granddaughter Maddie, well, he will see her become more of a princess than she already is. Dennis is in a better place, playing tennis with his best buddies, Dennis McAfee and Denny Farrell. I bet they're looking for some very high altitude balls. I just hope they're not looking for a fourth player. Oh, they're safe. Joe DiStefano's up there. I think you would all agree that Dennis made our world a better, brighter place. To have him in my life was a precious gift, and I have a grateful heart. Thank you all for coming, and don't forget to whistle the Andy of Mayberry song at the end of the service. I think you would like that.